Hello there, podcast listeners and podcast viewers, because we have audio, video, and all the spectrum in between audio and video.
Yep, that's right.
Thank God they can't smell.
Yeesh.
I'm running shower low today, folks. TMI. My name is Randall Lobb. I'm the writer, director, producer of Definitive Films, Faux Pop Culture, Faux Pop Media's resident comic guy. And I'm also the co-owner of the Faux Pop station here.
It's a lovely station.
With me today is...
I'm Ryan Buckley, and I'm from the Comics and Cocktails podcast. I'd also like to use this opportunity to announce my candidacy for President of the United States.
It's about time. It's about time.
I got some ideas.
You probably already, right now, have more legitimacy to the throne than some of the people running.
I'm thinking about putting pop in the water fountains.
That's not a bad idea. So this podcast is not about American politics, disappointing as that is. What we're talking about
comics.
We're talking today about key issue comics. Now, for those people at home who don't know what that is, we're going to go into a little bit of a detail about that. For those of you that do know, you wrestle with this every time you try to get caught up on titles that you want to read. And you might say, oh, I love this new Batman 49 or whatever I just picked up. I'm going to go back and get one all the way up. Exactly. And then you go to find those comics and you realize, why is this one $65?
Yeah.
Or
why is this one hard as hell to find?
That's right. So you just bumped into the key issue problem. And we want to introduce people to the key issue idea. This is a podcast about those key issues. It's a podcast about collecting and finding which comics are the ones you want to hang on to. Mm-hmm. We might make some recommendations, but we're mostly just following where the industry's already going and talking about that, right?
Yeah, for sure. And like the biggest thing that we're going to talk about today is what makes a key issue. Like, why are some of these issues hard to find? Why are they expensive? There's a number of different reasons for that.
And it's often the same reasons that come up again and again, and you've identified it with some of the ones that you brought here. So why don't we start with that first? So, Ryan, what's one of the first key issue types of comics?
For sure. Well, the most obvious one would be the first appearance. What that is that's the first comic where we were introduced to a character. And now that we're in this world of the cinematic universe where the films are doing so well, it's really amped up the value. So I got an example. Right? Here's a good example. So we'll pop this up here. So this is Uncanny X-Men number 266, written by the great Chris Claremont. And it introduces to a character, the Raging Cajun, everybody's favorite, Gambit. The creepiest X-Men of all time, no?
Etro Descartes, yeah?
Yeah.
Etro Descartes. So, do you remember when this one came out?
Late 80s?
Mm-hmm. Late 80s, early 90s?
Oh, wait. Late August.
Oh, sorry. It came out in the late Augusts. I remember when this came out, and a couple things that hit me about this. This was the Young Aurora. So there's a few comics, I can't remember now. You're in the X-Men world right now, and it's been so long since I've read it. Can you just give us a little bit of the background to this?
Oh, man, it's been a while since I read this. I'm rereading them all.
Right.
Because so my personal collection right now, I'm really trying to get every Chris Claremont X-Men book, and I've got, I think, maybe 40 or so left to buy. And they're all the more expensive ones.
Of course. But
so
this
my
one...
reading, I'm not quite up here. So
okay,
I don't want to guess. But
well, just to say then, what happens is there's an ongoing storyline.
Right.
And it's, X-Men, there's lots of time travel, and you can go anywhere in an X-Men storyline. But this character, I don't know if they would have predicted that he would become as popular as he was. Nobody could have known. There's not a lot of drum roll into this.
No, I don't think so. He was more of like a plot device to reveal a deeper layer of Storm's character, and because he was sort of a thief and a street child, and so they wanted to play on that. But he really resonated with people. And,
for some reason.
I think he kind of, after 1992, when that X-Men cartoon came out, that may be when his fame kind of catapulted at that point.
Yeah. And what's this going for right now? So we can just quickly look, and that's one of the secrets that we have is
we're going to with the Dr. Internet.
We're going to internet it up. So if you go to eBay right now and you want to find this, 266, I can see right now an unslabbed like this, $80 US. But slabbed and on the higher end, it might be $180, $190 US for a 9.6. Again, most people know what slabbed means. I have an example here. Mm-hmm. And this is a slabbed comic.
Wow.
There's a Star Wars 1, another first appearance, funny enough. So
and a number one. So obviously number ones are another key issue.
Yeah, I guess I shouldn't have even used this one yet.
Oh, that's a good one.
This is an example of a slabbed comic. However, you can see, for those of you that know, you're probably laughing because we're talking about this is a PGX slabbed comic. So what they do is they grade the comic, for those that don't know, and then you have a relative grade based on all kinds of aspects about the very minute elements of the way it looks. So you might have some mold here, which is called foxing. You might have some breakage in the spine along here and some bending, and somebody might have written the most common thing that you see that you hate is someone takes a marker and puts it inside the white letters. This exact title, someone did that. I'm sure I did it in 1977. But this is an example of the slabbed, but let's just to go back and talk about the first of a hero. So when you have a hero's first, and you might want to...
Yeah, here's a good one.
Yeah, a good example.
So this is a weird one because it's an Avengers comic, and it's actually an annual. So annuals, like the name suggests, they come out usually once a year. It's kind of an extra. Usually it's maybe a little bit longer. The storyline may not be part of the current story. So what's interesting about this is the first appearance of Rogue of the X-Men. And I love this cover. There's so much stuff going on in here. You can zoom. It's the classic Stan Lee. See Captain America totally defeated.
Yeah.
Observe Spider-Woman's daring midnight rescue.
To me, this one, I said this to Ryan earlier. I remember this. I have it too, and it looks like a yearbook. And that was the laugh for me. It made me think of when you would have a yearbook class, you'd have the different picks and then come up with the best caption you can. Yeah. But one thing I hate about this, look at the blob's face. I've always hated that. It's bothered me from day one. Can we just sort of highlight the blob's face?
He's a blob.
He is a blob. Look at his stupid face. I don't like that. And that's Milgram. That's a Milgram cover, isn't it?
I think so.
Yeah, Milgram. So I think when you're doing a cover like this, if I was an artist, I would say, "Oh God, it's too many characters." Yeah. It's an annoying cover to have to do, I would think. But again, it's a classic example of first character, and that idea of the first character, you can't know which one's going to catch and which one's not going to catch. There's one you have over there that really caught. You go to that one, and then I'll show another one in a minute here.
This one here?
Yeah.
There's one other cool thing on here. If you look, doesn't it look like Hawkeye's trying to shoot Professor X in the leg with an arrow?
He won't feel it, though.
Yeah, it's kind of, I don't know. It's a warning shot. Here's another one. So this is the real cream of my X-Men collection now starting. So any Claremont Byrne collaboration, those are my favorites right now. And this is right at the beginning of the Dark Phoenix saga. So it has that. But it was the first appearance of a couple of characters. So it's the first mention, I think, of the Hellfire Club. I think you see Sebastian Shaw. You see Emma Frost, the White Queen, and also Kitty Pryde. And so Kitty Pryde went on to be an incredibly important character in the X-Men. And I don't think when this came out, anybody had any idea how big she was going to be and how important. And I think...
Oh, God, nobody could.
And you were saying, too, like that Claremont is a writer. I think he used her in a great way, like as a plot device to be... She's like the innocent observer.
Totally.
So we kind of view the action and what's going on with the X-Men through her eyes. And I think that way, all the... the people who are like fanboys at that time reading it, like there was two things that like it spoke to their innocence and they had that lens, and she was like a cute girl.
I think she's a crush. I totally thought that at the time. Now when this run came out, I remember really getting into that storyline, and I can see why these become key issues because she's so baked into so many important things that have happened over the X-Men storylines over the years that you want to go back and see that first time that she shows up, and it becomes very important. Again, with this one, I don't know if it's huge value. Like, what would it go for? Would you guess, Ryan?
This one?
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe $40.
Yeah, good guess. So you see some at 25 unslabbed. You see around $40 and 50 and all that. But a slabbed high-end one is probably going to be about 140, I would guess. Yeah, there's a 9.0 that's 114, 115. Yeah, $300 for a 9.6. Wow. Now, I would say that yours is really good. It's a really nice one. Mm-hmm. And you probably did you pay 25 or 30 for it, maybe?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and that's a great comic to buy. And by the way, I love the cover too.
Yeah, me too. So this one takes off a couple of boxes for key issue because there's the first appearances and there's multiple ones. Mm-hmm. But sometimes people want to collect a book because they like a particular creative team. Yeah. And Claremont and Byrne is very popular. Mm-hmm. And also a key issue could be part of a really important story arc. And the Dark Phoenix saga is
enormous.
It's huge. It's probably the biggest storyline in the X-Men's history. They've been telling it over and over and over.
Yeah, they can't get tired of it. Something that stands out for me, like if you collect for art, one thing that I really like about this one, and it's such a funny little detail, is where Wolverine hits. Look at the little sparkles. And to me, that was so great. Like I could hear that sound effect. Mm-hmm. And for those of you who just take a look, you can see where his claws went.
Love his face.
Yeah. Oh, I love the way Byrne drew Wolverine.
He loved Wolverine.
Yeah, he really did. And here's another good first. A character first. This one I really like. This is one we talked about when one of your comics and cocktails. This is a classic first. It's a first and a first, like the example of the Star Wars, but this is not a first by a character, but a first in her own title, right? And another version of that is here's a first in his own title. So what you'll notice is here's a first in her own title at a 1, and here's a first in his own title at a 169. Mm-hmm. So I believe he was in Strange Tales.
They changed the name of the book, right?
And they wanted to give him his own title, so he gets a Doctor Strange. But it's a 169. And so there's this good little trick, which if you were out buying comics and you don't know that, it's Doctor Strange 169, you would maybe not find those special. This is why this idea is you go out, you see a 169, nobody knows it's the first, you snap it up and you get a great deal. This one, obviously, it says right on it, first issue.
Fabulous first issue.
Yeah, exactly.
All out action.
One of my favorite lines of The Female Fights Back. Where is that? There, The Female Fights Back.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I love that. And she's got the Farrah hair. Yeah, we'll talk about this one down the road in specific. We'll talk about this one in specific, but this gives you 2 examples of the kinds of firsts for characters. And again, I like the idea of not knowing, if you came into this new and you weren't sure, this is the first Doctor Strange in his own title. And I believe there's a Captain America that the 100 is the first one in his own, isn't it? Is it the 100?
Yeah, I don't know the number, but that's...
Yeah, so that's exciting there. But here's another thing that I like. And again, this is not a first, this is a second. So yeah, you can have a key issue that's a second. And you would say, why would a second be interesting? Well, a second with other elements becomes collectible, becomes a key for me. So there are 3 or 4 things with this one. Ryan brought one up. What did you say about this that you noticed and liked? You liked the invisible.
Yeah. I mean, you're invisible and then you're wearing a costume with a hat.
It's pretty great.
It's I don't know what's going on there.
No, it's a weird choice.
You know what that guy's called?
The Invisible Destroyer.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. What I liked about this, you also pointed out this one had that classic terse. Exactly. Not even Green Lantern's mighty power ring can stop me from setting off this atomic bomb explosion. It's a classic, old-fashioned comic exposition dialogue.
He's exclaiming his thought.
Yes, he says his thought, which is great. I liked it. What makes it collectible for me is, yes, it's a second Hal Jordan, who's the Green Lantern, but it's got an atomic bomb cover, which I like, and studs it in a time period. So again, here's another thing that can make a key issue is if there's something that's contextual from the time period and it really stands out on a cover, that can be collectible. Mm-hmm. And by the way, you get to decide if it's collectible for you, right?
Yeah, for sure. Look, he looks like Will Ferrell there.
He looks exactly like Will Ferrell. There you go. Hey, Hollywood, pay attention. The other thing that I really like about this one is I like the pink wash. I like when they have clashing or nutty colors. This is not a great version. I believe this comic is
what year was that? Do you know?
Would it be 56? I think. So we'll look at
10 cents. That's usually.
Yeah, I think we'll say Green Lantern Showcase 23. Well, what we can do is just a second here. You quick take a look at that. I think it's 56.
Yeah, I'll talk about the. Yeah. So we're talking about covers now. So that's another thing. Like you decide what's a key issue, and one of the things that makes it collectible are there's some iconic covers. So here's one that I love, and what a great team this is. Wolverine, Captain America, and the Black Widow.
Oh yeah.
And that's drawn by Jim Lee. That's Uncanny X-Men
Beautiful
268. And that's a kind of a hard to find book, and it's usually in this condition, you'd have to pay like $20-25 for that, or if you buy it in the Black Friday week-long sale in your local comic shop, you can pick it up for $9.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I did that this year. I picked up a whole bunch. So, yeah, but I was lucky to find this one. I've been looking for it for a while, and I just love the cover.
Yeah, the cover's great, and what I like about it is, of course, and we talked about this, I like that triumvirate. I like those three characters together, and I love the World War II aspect of this, that they have these shared,
it's a cool story,
these shared histories.
And on that same theme is another great X-Men artist is Paul Smith, and I have a couple of his covers here, and I love the Kitty one; is great.
Yeah, and we talked about this, that Kitty Pryde. It's been like this again and again and again. You've seen a cover like that.
Yeah.
It's better than a Girl in Trouble cover, but it is like a Girl in Trouble cover. What sells it for me is it's not just a Girl in Trouble. Look at the look on her face. Cut back to the one shot again, please. Yeah. Look at the expression on her face and the look of her hands there. To me, she's not knocked down and staying down. She's getting up. And I love that. And this, as a kid, you see that. Imagine if you were a young girl, this would be a really interesting cover for you because it will be relevant to you. You have a daughter. I have a daughter. Mm-hmm. That's the kind of girl you want your daughter to grow up to be. You can't knock me down. I'm not staying. I really like that cover. And what do you like about this this Rogue and Wolverine cover?
Just the perspective is great. Like, he's using the use of perspective here. So he's bigger and in the foreground, and she's in the back, and he's just really coming for you. And then the way he draws the claws. And like the expression on his face, it kind of shows like how the emotions there, like his anger and hurt, and that's a sad storyline. That's when he goes to Japan and he gets stood up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was good. The next one is the one with her, right on the cover.
Yeah.
So these aren't valuable comics. Like they're
not really.
If you went to buy them, they're not cheap, but they're not expensive, and you can get in and enjoy them for the covers. And that's one of the best things about key issues, again, is you get to decide what's a key issue for you. Can we cut to the iPad for a minute? Cut to that Green Lantern iPad? Yeah, there you go. So this is a digital version of that comic, and this shows that color pop on that. But as you go inside, one thing that we can see in this comic, the interior of it, it's very 50s. It feels very 50s. Styles,
those
right?
Hairstyles.
Yeah, exactly. When I buy a key issue, I don't necessarily read it. Like sometimes I don't buy them for money. Like I don't buy it and put it in a bank or whatever. But with an issue like this, when you can get it digitally, that's a nice bonus because I can leave it in the bag. And again, this title, we go back to our wide camera again, you see I bought my version. If you want to get cut to the overhead, it's rough. If I opened this up and looked into it, it was let's say
quite a bit of spine damage. And just reading it would be
rough. It's a $50 comic. Oh, I don't have the cover in it. It's a $50 comic, the way I bought it, and I maybe paid a little bit less for it, but it's a couple $100 if you got it in pretty good shape. It's a comic book that you want to get in digital. And so sometimes, again, please cut back to the iPad. We'll be doing this sometimes as we'll be showing you when we can. We get a digital comic of some of the more valuable comics because, you don't want to open them up. You don't want to rip them. But here's an example by what I was talking about with the color.
I think that those colors, if you think about that really crazy bright purple and green are used in comics so much, and I think it's because of the quality of the paper that they were printed on when they were on the old, like more newsprint that had like a brown tinge to it. when they use that color,
Yeah.
it really stands out. And that's why if you think about how many characters have that color scheme, like in Marvel, it's nuts. Like the Hulk and the Green Goblin, and like it just goes on and on. You see those colors used together. I just think it might be because that they look really colorful on the page.
You know, yeah, and you know what else it is? If you think about it, over time, they might have even been so focused on kids and just like eye-popping weirdness that interior, that Showcase 22, it's sort of, or 23? Anyway, it fits this idea that you just want to get that attention and hold it. Let's talk about something else, and you just put yours out there, the idea of getting them signed.
So this is another thing that makes a key issue. It's more about like, I don't know, maybe more sentimental or reminds you of a specific time. So I don't go to a lot of comic book conventions. I've only been to a couple. One of the ones I went to is Fan Expo in Toronto, here in Ontario. And I was lucky enough to meet and talk to Frank Quitely. He's one of my favorite artists for a while. He's a very, very nice guy. And I got him to sign this first issue of Batman and Robin, which is one of my favorite runs, written by Grant Morrison, who's like got to be in my top 5 writers of all time. The interesting dynamic in this comic we were talking before the show is how it kind of reversed the whole Batman and Robin, because this is Dick Grayson as Batman with Damian as Robin. So you've got the grim, violent Robin, and then more lighthearted kind of Batman. And I love that dynamic. I could have read that book forever. It was great. And the other one is like a great, amazing Spider-Man arc that focused on the Lizard as the villain. And it's, I don't even know how to pronounce the name, Cameron Coley, maybe?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, probably Cameron Coley.
Coley.
Yeah, he's a great artist. And Dan Slott, the writer, he was just there. Like, I had to line up for a while to meet quietly, but Dan was just kind of sitting by this Fantastic Four thing, just chatting with people.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And I'll throw a couple of mine up that I got signed that you maybe haven't seen.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, again, I know this is covered. You're covered by the certificate of authenticity. We'll try and move this aside.
Yeah,
so
I don't have that certificate, so mine are just considered cover damage.
Well, there's a couple ways. Like Ryan's story is my story here with the Southern Cross, Becky Cloonan. So I went to Fan Expo and interviewed Becky for her Conan work.
Oh, nice.
And she was selling this. So I got to buy this from Becky. And that's great. When you can buy it from the artist or from the writer, it's more meaningful for you. I think it's more meaningful for them too, right? So when I picked this comic up and she and I had a chat, we had a great interview. She's a really, really good interview. I really enjoyed talking to her. So of course I wanted to buy the comic from her. And that adds a lot of meaning. It's not something that I'm going to open and read again because I like that. I like the story of that. And then the second one here is Paper Girls. And of course, I just bought this online. Like I decided, that I wanted it signed. I read Paper Girls. I loved Paper Girls.
Yeah, it's good.
My wife was a paper girl. I was a paper boy. You've read it too, right?
Yeah, it's great.
So great. And
Midtown Comics, I've been there.
Yeah, exactly. And I love the feel. And I literally, this is, some people don't like this. I went online, looked for it signed, and found it signed by everybody and said, I made the decision. So you can buy a key issue cheap and get it signed. You can buy a key issue and pay what this might have been, maybe $28 for 3, and the first one signed. And I wanted to go back and get them first runs. So that was a nice way to buy it.
Yeah, that's a great story. When I was there, because of their location in New York, they get artist signings and writers in there all the time. And sometimes if they don't go out, like sell them all, they just have them on their shelf. So when I was there, I picked up the massive #1, and it was signed by Brian Wood and had the certificate of authenticity, the exact same one. And it was cover price.
Yeah, that's crazy. If you can get in, like some of you obviously will live in the city, and if you can get into a comic shop on the right day, when the 1 in 100 variant or whatever, and you just have your timing down. And that's something I was going to talk about now is, another type of key issue is a variant. But first, I happen to see this here. Here's another type of key. Can you guess what that key is? It's a good little trick. So that's a different kind of key.
Is that the first time that Deadpool and Cable were like together?
It might be, but that's not what makes it jump out for me. See, I wonder if you Google it, X-Force 15. Let's see if somebody puts it up. So at 9.8, that's only a $70 comic. That's a Capullo cover.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. And it might be, I'm pretty sure, yeah, it's his first Capullo. That's the first Capullo cover in X-Force. So he had done Gore Shriek, 86, and he did that whole run. And then I think he came in and he might have done the interior of 14, and then he did the cover of 15. And he had done, I'm not going to remember that, Quasar or something like that. Anyway, this was his jump to X-Force, and he gets a great cover, and he gets Deadpool. So you've got Deadpool, who's hot, and you've got Capullo, whose work I just love. And so to me, that's a great key, again, for me. But you can go and buy that pretty cheap, and I don't know that anybody cares about this. And again, when we go into the podcast as a whole, we might spend 20 minutes talking about this and why we like it and what's good about it. And I think we're going to see Cable come up in a Deadpool movie too.
Yeah, it was teased at I don't know, maybe spoiler.
I haven't seen it. I don't care about teasers.
Teased on the internet, but I saw the movie and it was great. I actually had fairly low expectations. I thought it was going to just be okay. But it's hilarious. Perfect.
And that's an example of another key, as you noted. When you see a title that has a character that comes up in a show, in a movie, that's awesome.
Well, that's exactly why I bought this, actually, because I recently got this. I got a good price for it. It was hard to find. So another great cover, that's Alan Davis. I love the way he draws the blow-dried. Look at Sabretooth's blow-dried hair there. It's amazing.
It's the era.
So this is not the first appearance of the character Psylocke, because I think she was in an English comic, Captain Britain first, maybe number 8. I'm not 100% sure. And then she was in a New Mutants annual. But this is when she's first in the X-Men, and she first kind of becomes Psylocke. She was in those other books, I think, as Elizabeth Braddock, Captain Britain.
Yeah, Betsy Braddock.
Yeah, Betsy Braddock. And this is also a key one because it's part of the Mutant Massacre storyline, which is a great X-Men story.
I remember buying that one and being really excited about it. Like, I love that cover, and it's a classic Marvel cover there. And look at that, you can get that one pretty cheap. That's not an expensive comic.
No.
So there's a 9.8 that's $180, but that's way overpriced.
Yeah, that's overpriced. This is going to go up in value though after the movie comes out.
Oh, for sure. And speaking of movies, that's why I'd like to show this. So here's Miller's Chrononauts. If we can, I got a bunch of them here. There's the first one. A weird kind of random thing can happen with keys. So I decided this is key. You know what I mean? Nobody else has decided that. I mean, some people might buy, there are some variant covers that came out. It's a 4-issue run. And I didn't actually buy these. I had my cousin. I said, pick them up for me in the city because we live in a small town. But what happened was this. We're making a documentary on the history of Conan the Barbarian. We're working with Chris Morgan. Mm-hmm. Chris Morgan had just bought the rights to Chrononauts.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, so Miller tends to do these titles that he gets a few, and it becomes a movie, and then he moves on. And I like his work. A lot of people have complained about him over the years for various political reasons or whatever. I enjoy his work. This is pretty dark, and it's pretty cool. I love time travel. It's a key for me. Nobody else will think it's key because a guy that I know is working on the movie. So that's exciting. And this is, again, there's a sort of speculative element at work here, isn't there? Yeah. Do you want to think that it will become a movie that becomes popular? Do you want to think someone will love it down the road? Will it become a hit? And then everybody will wish they had it. That's the fun of buying these up. There's another kind of key I want to point out. And that's what we see here. Now, for those of you who know, this is kind of an underrated title. It's Frank Miller's first touch on Daredevil. Now, Frank Miller defined Daredevil.
Oh, for sure.
Frank Miller and Daredevil are, if you were going to say, what are absolutely key issues out of the whole mid to late 80s, Miller and Daredevil. And this was when he first got his hands on Daredevil. So,
Born Again, that storyline, it sort of set the tone for so many books that came after it in the 80s and the more dark, if you want to say, like adult tone.
Mm-hmm. And it's not an expensive title. I think I probably paid... I think when it came up, it was $25 or less for a 7.5. Now, I would have rather not had a 7.5, and the shipping was expensive, ridiculous. But it was one that I never, when I wanted it, I couldn't see it. I wasn't able to find this anywhere. So I saw it for reasonable money and picked it up because I loved it. I loved the idea that, oh, there's that one. And by the way, there's something about it that for those of you that know your comics history, how Kirby is this?
Yeah.
It's so Kirby. Yeah. That is Jack Kirby. 100%. Totally. And even the way he's drawn, you know, the highlight, the sheen of the metal. Anyway, I liked this cover.
I love what he's saying here. Spider-Man saying to Daredevil, I sense deadly danger, Daredevil, but I can't see it. I'm blind. And Daredevil, boo. Blind all the time, man. I know. You're blind now.
So classic. Yeah. And that's why he's mad, by the way.
Yeah, it looks like he's shoving him as well. Like,
Old Hornhead is furious.
Marvel's TV sensation.
Yeah. Actually, that's something I don't like about this. And I think that this whole series was never collectible as a result.
What TV are they referring to? Like, not that
no
cartoon.
There was an old Spider-Man series that was for kids, and I think Spider-Man His Amazing
Friends with like.
Yeah, I think so.
Oh yeah.
But did you see who inked this? Cockrum.
Holy crap.
Yeah. And it's inked. If you think about it, it's inked pretty hard. Like he stamped
there's
it,
a lot
right?
of
He
ink.
really stamped it.
Like Daredevil's.
So he might have.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Dave Cockrum worked on a lot of the titles that Ryan collects, the X-Men titles. So I'd like if you do you have a Cockrum that you could pull up?
Oh no,
not right here. So I just want to turn around and grab something. And Ryan, if you want to talk, if there's another type of key issue, something else that you can have as an example, I'm going to go back to my pile, which is totally unpro. But I just want to get another type of key and show something specific.
What do you got? You got a hint over there?
I got something
looking over. I think so. Talk about key
event.
Issues. Whoa. Yeah, the big event. I was talking about events and character death, and this one is both of those. Not this issue specifically, but it happens during it.
We got our events.
Yeah. First issue spectacular. So comic book companies, like, they're businesses and they want to make money. So one way to get you to buy more comics that you don't already buy is to once a year have like a big event that's a crossover. And if your comic book fans know, either love crossovers or hate them. They have a love-hate relationship because sometimes you get great work. Unfortunately, most times you don't. And it's so if you're reading one particular book, there'll be a big storyline that other books tie into it. This one was kind of different. This is like a whole universe-changing event for DC. It really shook up the fabric of the entire world for them. And kind of because they had like all these different multiverses, and this is just a way of sort of cleaning it up because it got so complicated, and there was different versions of like Superman on different worlds, and
and DC was really guilty of that. I think at the time, but I'd say this was probably the first. Like I hate to say it because we haven't done our research. We're just talking about different keys. I think this was one of the, if not the first idea of doing that, of what they do now. That they're happy to boil it down and scorch the earth. But one thing I loved about this is I love his art. Man, I mean, his art is amazing and it's so of its time. And one thing that for me is to see the detail that he gives to characters in the background, right? And again, you can go and get this title and take a look at it, but this is so much of its time, but yet sometimes you'll see, and I can hold it up a little bit.
Wow.
He's not rushing like some artists when they're doing something big like that. They're, in a way, they're hurrying, but this is that very delineative style that, very liney look. I think Liefeld came out of this kind of style, and Jim Lee came out of the style.
I remember reading this and getting it when it was coming out, and I was like 13 at the time, and I remember thinking that the story was just beyond me because I didn't have the background knowledge of the DC universe to understand what was going on, and it's kind of complicated and dense storytelling anyway. But I just kept buying it because of the art.
Yeah, I loved his art. I really enjoyed him, and I liked his Superman too.
And you can just look forever. There's so many detailed panels inside, not just on the covers, where all the stuff in the background and the characters. So you can just like spend so much time looking at that.
Now let's talk about variants.
Oh, nice.
So the whole variant thing, some people say it's a money grab, and they're 100% right. But it's a money grab that I enjoy. So
yeah, I'm never like that's a thing that I've never been that excited about. Like, I have the odd one. Well, we were talking about, I have like an early Batman, Snyder Batman. I can't remember if it's number 2 or 3, and it's I got the variant because I couldn't find the first print of the original one, but I got a variant that's a Jim Lee cover. That's really cool.
Yeah, I love that cover.
Yeah.
Now, for me, there are two or three things at work here. I don't just buy any variant. I'm not that guy, but I love this variant because it's Kevin Eastman's Batman. He also has ones that you have to get through his fan club. Then there's the ones that, for those of you who know, there's sort of the sketch covers where if you get a chance to go to a show or whatever, you get someone to sketch. And then here's a fun variant.
Yeah, these are actually really cool.
These were pretty fun. And again, I didn't buy this because I cared about the variant. I bought it because I just wanted to talk about it. I think it's such a great idea for a guy like my age, and that's what I wanted to put beside this. For me, you know, I like to have these both. I like to have them up, and it's like a part of my youth, right? Yeah. So some variants are, or some key issues even, are just, they tug your heartstrings and they make you remember the old days. My God, that's such a great idea.
Yeah, and the action figure covers are great. And they have all different ones.
And the same could be said for the rap variants, right, that were popular. Yeah. The what did they call them? The hip-hop variants. And I think I have one here, but I won't pull that out. The idea of the variant, again, it seems, some people think it's a crass money grab, but if you're a collector, it's fun. And if you want to put stuff up, sorry about that, if you put stuff up, like I like to do, then these are great for that. And I think this one started going up like crazy, in fact, if I'm not mistaken. We could look it up. Anyway, it's not a big deal.
This book is great. We're going to do on Comics and Cocktails. Now that Marvel's been publishing Star Wars comics again for a year and the movie just came out, we're going to do an episode devoted just to these Star Wars comics and kind of decide if they're good or not. Because when they first got the license back from Dark Horse, I was skeptical and I thought that they're just going to use the IP and just put out a bunch of crap.
Yeah, you felt
it's like a license to print money. And I kind of felt bad for Dark Horse because they did a lot of great work. Their Star Wars comics were amazing.
Yeah.
An interesting thing, too, if you're a Marvel Unlimited subscriber, which is the service where for a monthly fee like Netflix, you can freely read in a digital device or the web. I think it's about 18,000 titles now. But because they got the license back, all of those Dark Horse Star Wars comics are on Marvel Unlimited. All of them. Like 110 different series. So it's great if you want to read like all these hundreds of Star Wars books. That's a nice
catch-up.
But I was surprised because they put their big name creators on this, like Jason Aaron's writing it, and Kieran Gillen is writing Darth Vader.
He's good.
And so I don't want to get into too much detail and spoil that podcast, but I've read those two comics and I was
picking up.
Surprised. Yeah, they're very good.
How about this? How about this kind of a key issue? Now, I'm not an Avengers collector, but I collect something else. Look at this. Harlan Ellison. Yeah, this was in the shop like that. It's got a Harlan Ellison script. So I'm also a book collector, and I collected Harlan Ellison books for years and years and years. And I remember when getting an Ellison book was really exciting. And I remember when this came out, this was before I was old enough to have collected a lot of Ellison books. And this was one that I had. And the idea that, he would write a comic book, it's not unusual, but it just so happens that this, I don't collect Avengers. I'm not a big Avengers fan, but it's a writer that I like. And again, I have a personal connection. So that's one of those things. You could go through and pick up all kinds of things based on your own personal connection.
And it says right on the cover too. Like his name's right on the cover.
Yeah,
that makes it cool too.
It's awesome. And you know what? It's also of its time, right? It's a classic type. Classic Marvel. I must kill 5 innocent persons. So I think we've pretty much nailed it. Is there any other type of key that you'd like to point out? We haven't talked about the straight up investment key.
Yeah, the straight up investment key is, we'll talk about that. But I think that one point we didn't talk about was the way that, so the industry knows about this. So they don't just do alternate covers and variants as a way to get you to buy additional comics. Anybody who's read comics for the last few years, there's a thing called the dreaded reboot. So it's like they kind of create the illusion of a key issue where a title that's been running for years will suddenly end, and then next month it'll just start again with a new number one. And usually there's a shakeup in the creative team, but sometimes not at all.
But I often like those because sometimes the new team is really good. Like the Snyder Capullo Batman would be an example. I'm not saying that was a crass reboot, but that's an example of a reboot that I really like.
Well, that came out of the whole New 52, which was a giant reboot because they basically reset their entire line of comics and retold all the origin stories. And that kind of got me to DC. Like, it worked as a marketing tool. I think at least the first 6 months were both, I think, critically and commercially super successful. And then they kind of ran out of steam. When all the books got into their second story arcs, you can tell that they've really planned out, I think, what they were initially going to do, and they had to really nail the launch. And then once they did that, then it kind of meandered.
I wouldn't want that job. Like, what's the new problem? What's the new way to approach this character who is 75 years old? Very complicated.
Yeah.
I think maybe we'll do one more thing.
Yeah, one more.
And this, again, is a very strange little comic. Have you ever seen that?
No.
Yeah. It's Mark Asquith. And it's The Prisoner. So I remember when he put this out, DC put it out. I was really into the show The Prisoner, Patrick McGowan show.
Oh, yeah.
And it's written by, it's amazing. And it's written by Mark Asquith, and it's a guy that I knew. So to me, this was really cool. And it was, I don't think it's collectible. I don't think it was important. I don't think it, broke any records or did anything amazing. But to me, it's meaningful because it's something that I like. And that's the best kind of key of all. It's when you want it because it's for you.
So I picked up like a massive stack of stuff like exactly what you're saying, like comics that weren't in great condition, that aren't really collectible in terms of an investment, but they were just like mini series. Like I got like the X-Men and Micronauts.
I knew you were going to say that. I actually could have read your mind. Yeah, and the Ileana Magic.
I got that one.
I knew it.
And I got the Iceman one.
Yeah, I was totally going to. And the Beast.
Nightcrawler and the Beast.
Dazzler and Beast.
Yeah, Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah, I totally knew what you're going to say.
That one's in terrible condition.
Isn't that funny? Maybe I'm psychic.
Yeah, and X-Men and Alpha Flight.
Yeah. I knew it.
I got all of those.
I knew you were going to say that. I don't know why. Yeah, and they weren't that great.
No.
They're not collectible. They're not valuable. I have them too. And I bought them when they came out. And that was a time period when I think Marvel was testing, oh yeah, you can't get sick of the X-Men? Let's try.
And poor Claremont, because he was, I don't know if he was a control freak, but he really cared about his characters and he wanted to be involved. Yeah. So they were like, well, we want to do this book and we're going to get somebody else to write it. But then he was like, no, I'll do it. I just want to, because that's my character.
I'll do it all.
And then he's just doing everything. And then like, well, we want another book about the younger sort of mutants. So like, well, I'll write that too then.
Yeah, and we're going off on a tangent, but that's what this is all about. What happened with New Mutants? Why didn't that work? Like, it feels to me, when I was buying it, I thought, these Sienkiewicz, I thought these are going to be amazing.
Like the Demon Bear.
Oh my God, so crazy.
They were good. And then I liked the book and it felt different. Like I remember reading it, I was young at the time and it just felt mature. And it was like, even though it was about kids, it's super dark and heavy. And then Louise Simonson, her run, it starts off kind of rocky, but then it gets really good.
You're into those now, right? You're reading, I think.
Yeah, but I think as a kid, I was always kind of like, there's something missing for me. Like the X-Men was all action, and when I think about what was happening during that time in the X-Men, that's like when they were in Australia and people thought they were dead, and the whole Siege Perilous, and but then you got this like other like more psychological like I just want to fit in. Let's go to the mall, and all these other kids are popular, but they're like
strange.
Go to the Boston Academy, and they're these other evil mutants.
And do you remember Lockheed? And then. There were just elements to it that were so
Mojo verse. It's just weird.
It's just really strange, trippy. The Mojo verse.
And then Excalibur came out and it was even more.
Yeah,
it was like even more trippy. And it was too weird for me then, but now I like it.
And was that around the long shot? The long shot run again. It's very like strange.
Long shot while reading those books.
Really?
Yeah, I had the mullet and the blonde.
That's right.
Yeah.
What was that? Art Adams was that his name?
Yeah.
Art Adams. Yeah, he was good.
Yeah, really good.
Yeah, really good. You see, there you go. We can go by writer. We can go by artist. You could go by colorist. I mean, you can decide what you want to collect.
For sure.
And particularly by eras, like some people like a certain era of a certain, like you're going back and getting the Claremonts. And that's a lot of work because he was a busy guy. You could find any way that you design your collection, and what you call key is up to you.
If there's something you really know a lot about and kind of enjoy doing, like I don't think it's crazy to spend a lot of money on like a really key issue that you know is going to like at least keep its value and only go up and up and up and up.
Well, it can't go down. Like what somebody said to me was, I was looking at the what's the first Journey into Mystery with the first Thor, 83?
I don't know the number, but
You know the comic I mean.
Yeah,
Thor
I know
on the
exactly.
cover whirling it. In London, have you seen the one? He's got it signed by Jack Kirby and Stan Lee.
No.
And it's whatever it was at the volume or at the value of it is not commensurate with the quality of the title. But as he said Jack Kirby's not signing many comics these days.
Yeah, that's true.
So you come to this point where you think it's worth whatever anybody says it is, and if Jack Kirby's gone and you are a Kirby fan, it's worth it.
Yeah.
So the last thing I think we'll say, then we'll go out, is you and I were just very briefly talking about comic art. And I didn't bring any of my comic art here, but is that something that interests you? I mean, I told you about that beautiful Miller.
Yeah, I recently found a website that's it's advertised on the back of a bunch of comics right now, where you can buy like original art and pages from like contemporary books, and it's kind of reasonable. And some of it's like really expensive, but
Unbelievable.
I think that it's something that I'm definitely interested in.
Me too. And that, to me, that when you boil it all away, when maybe somebody's wife or somebody's husband or somebody's mom or dad or whoever you wrestle with says this is a waste of money, this is not worth it, I would say this is art at its base. Boil it down, that's art. The comics are art. I'm
curious, so what it's usually pencil art of an original page that people are inking, right? So who are the artists that you'd want to collect?
I
mean, there's a long list probably. Just give me a couple.
I actually Buscema. Obviously, Neil Adams, obviously. If you can get, I have a Neil Adams Conan at home. I have a John Buscema Conan, Punisher, and Wolverine at home, all three on one page.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was a fluke find. I mean, I would want to collect the artists that everybody knows that everybody would collect. Like I like Capullo, I would collect him. But do you know Carrie Nord? Yeah. So I love Carrie's art. So, probably lots of people would say, everybody wants him. Who would you want?
Well, Byrne, probably, for sure.
Yeah, beautiful line.
And Barry Windsor Smith.
I was going to say, again, I'm reading your mind. X-Men 53, right? Do you remember that cover?
Yeah.
That's his first.
And then the Life, Death stuff later. And there's that one cover, too, that's like 214. I think the one
Beautiful
after this
Storm?
one. Yeah, it's like all pink and like looks like it's...
Barry's good.
Like,
Barry would be great. You're right. I love Frazetta, obviously. Well, you've seen what's here.
That's crazy.
Yeah, we'll talk about comic art too, and artists that we like, and we'll highlight that. But again, we've gone on for plenty, and you're trying to introduce the subject matter, and of course, we go down the rabbit hole. But comic art is art. Comics are art. And the money that you spend, if you like it, it's money well spent. And if it's money that's not wasted, it's, again, money well spent.
Yeah, for sure. It makes part of like what this makes this hobby great is that collectible aspect. Like it's fine just to buy the contemporary comics and read them and enjoy the story and feel like you're part of this ongoing narrative. But it gets everybody eventually. Once you get into that, you'll be like, well, I want to go back and find out what happened. And then you start looking online now, which is great. And everybody has those key issues.
Yeah, so collect your own key issues. If you want to let us know about them, you can send us an email at keyissue@fauxpop.com, and we'll answer back. We'll tell you what we think we would buy, and you tell us what you think we should buy or what you should buy. And as we collect titles, we'll bring them in and talk about them. Try to do one at a time. So you might bring one, I might bring one.
Yeah, and we'll go into a little more detail. Like, so we'll say this is the key issue, and this is why it is a key issue, and we'll go through it, like the story and the significance.
Hopefully this right here, where are my hands? There. We'll be able to open them up and examine them. Some of them, obviously, we can't. The ones that are slabbed, we'll try to get them digitally, which is always part of the challenge. Anyway, thanks very much.
Yeah.
We're at this camera. Look at it.
I'm looking into the camera.
Are you?
I am.
Are you making awkward eye contact?
I'm just trying not to cough.
You've done a good job.
Thanks.
So let's not use his mic. Thanks very much once again here at Faux Pop Station. This is Key Issue. I am Randall Lobb.
And I'm Ryan Buckley.
We'll see you next time.
Take care.